Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Time in the Round, a podcast dedicated to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! My name's Ruben,
And I'm Joe, and we have another 40 minutes of weekly discussion coming right up.
and without further ado, episode 2, 40 minutes. Let's begin. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm good. I played a hobby league for the first time in months because a new archetype came out that kind of supported one of my personal favorites, and I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later. But I had a successful hobby. I actually won the hobby, which was cool. And I know that you've been playing multiple hobbies as well this week with the same sort of deck.
Well, I'm spoiled. You know this, Joe. I live in Auckland. I can go to hobbies quite literally every day. And I definitely found that was super useful coming up to larger competitive events. I mean, we just saw TCG Players Regional, or not TCG Player, TCG Collectors Regional in Christchurch happened yesterday.
Yeah, 41
So I
players, I
think it's
think.
important. 41, 40, 40, yeah, 41, 43, something, an odd number.
And
But we saw that, so it's important to have the competitive events, or like hobbies, so you can practice for competitive events.
Yeah, and quick congratulations to the best admin, Liam Gill, for taking that one out with Sprite, which was cool to see. Liam had a bit of a rough 2022, and he started off 2023 the right way. So regional win under his belt.
Avid listener.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I mean, I've seen so many events prop up in the last couple of days. I think on the page alone, there's been a few regionals advertised. One of them our own one in Palmerston North. That's coming up in April, but in between then, there's multiple. There's so many things going on again, and you can definitely sense that the game's just kicking off again, and we're back at 100%, and we're ready to go.
It's super exciting, and being on my end, it's really exciting to have these opportunities for players and people. I think a lot of 2022 was spent asking for events. Even when I started in 21, it was just a lot of seeking events, looking for reasons to kind of play the game, reasons to kind of purchase product or like better your skills. Just with this lack of competitive events, lack of stakes, you just kind of felt that most of the time you were just buying cards because they were new and playing the game because you had nothing else to do. And so I feel like with these competitive events ramping back up, it really gives me a lot of hope. And with new events, there's new products, and that's kind of what we want to talk about to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a new box that came out, I believe, on Wednesday this week, just been, and that was Amazing Defenders. Hasn't had the best rap from the community, to be honest. It is a box that doesn't provide a lot of value, but it does provide us with three new archetypes. Two of them are probably worth talking about, one not so much. But yeah, what's your opinion on the Amazing Defenders?
I think it's pretty rough for a lot of strategies, especially deck building sets. I know a lot of people are used to the traditional method, which was the kind of four supers and a secret rare. I mean, that's definitely where
Mm.
you started with those. I was kind of on the tail end of that design, so I never really got to experience them as a whole. I think, in particular, for Amazing Defenders, I do feel it was just a unfortunate timing. I
Mm.
think that right now, where the game is, it just doesn't. It's not conducive to introductory strategies, particularly ones that don't have all the support pieces out the gate. Good product, wrong time.
Yeah, I think so. But also, you have to note with this set compared to some of the previous deck building sets in the last couple of years, it really did not hit the nail on the head with the reprints. Like we saw
Mm.
in the one before this, and what was it? I can't remember the set now,
Tactical
but it had
Masters.
that's the one had Droll and Lockbird, Anti Spell Fragrance cards that were like kind of hard to obtain at the time, or at least like were semi expensive for newer players, and they were just all of a sudden very easy to get. Like Trap Trick as well was in that set. Cosmic,
Mhm.
just really good staples like for new players. So like you pick that set up, even if you don't know much about the game, you still walk away with some good cards. In this one, there's not a lot.
Just
There's one for one
yeah.
maybe, and not much else.
Yeah, it's unfortunate in terms of the reprints. I think that that's kind of the only saving grace for these sets if there isn't, a cracker archetype right out of the gate. I think
Mm.
maybe Genesis Impact didn't have the strongest reprints of the set, but I mean Drytron was a phenomenal strategy. And
Yeah.
then, you look on. I mean, I think, to be honest, the best set of that kind of modern deck building time is, to be honest, still Grand Creators.
Yeah.
Not only did it have 3 really competitively successful archetypes, it also had incredible reprints. Things like Torrential Tribute, Solemn Strike, Emergency Teleport. I think that is a modern deck building set done right, and
Mm.
it's a little unfortunate it just hasn't been able to be replicated.
I think this set, though, I have to say, is one that, like, potentially in the future, when we look back at it, depending on how they go with new support for these archetypes, could be something that we were like, hey, that's actually not a terrible thing. We saw it with like decks like Rika and Weather Painters. They do receive like more support, not quite to the level where it pushes them to tier 1, but like, or maybe in Rika's case it does, but like, I don't know. I feel like these archetypes have potential, like 2 of them at least. So we'll get cracking into them.
You're totally. Let's talk about these archetypes. It does give me something that's, it feels like it'll age well.
Hmm. So the first one we won't talk heaps about because, in all honesty, I haven't looked into it that much, and I haven't heard good things. And that's Rescue Ace. I pulled a collector's rare of it, and it was the good card. And that card lets you set 4 of the Rescue Ace cards, and I mean, a card that says that could in future become good, but I don't think that the deck does enough at the moment.
No, it's
In its
this
current
weird
state.
combination of, like, what, fire machines and fire warriors, based around having what their level 1 monster on the board at all times. I feel like it's a little bit too fragile.
Almost
And
too gimmicky, yeah.
exactly. And, the okay, it is pretty cool, pretty unique to see like a set 4 from deck that, that's never been done before. But I just think it was a little bit, the archetype itself just doesn't have the legs to kind of stand behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's
Um,
not a lot to talk about, but as I say, like, it is one that for the future they might be able to fix it.
yeah,
But
it is getting support.
yeah, yeah. Moving on to the next one, which I know you're very excited about, and a few other people, is Pearly.
Yeah, so I personally have always been a fan of Eevee since the original games. I think that, I first played Gold and Silver, so I really enjoyed seeing Espeon and Umbreon.
Mm,
And I also thought it was super unique when they introduced Sylveon in the newer strategies, so that they, kind of made the fairy type in Pokemon its own
yeah.
strategy, and kind of the flagship Pokemon for this new typing in the Kalos region. Um,
I
but,
always was a big fan of Jolteon. To be honest, I liked his like fast
Thunderstones.
attacking moves. Yeah, it was great, and the concept of stones around. You give a Pokemon a stone. Oh,
Oh,
um, sorry,
sorry, what?
Pearly.
Pearly. So this is an archetype based around a level 1 monster. Seeing a theme here, level 1. This is a level 1 monster that on normal or special can excavate 3 and can add Pearly cards. Pearly are a archetype that revolves around Xyz summoning and kind of not. It doesn't cheat them out. It kind of Zodiacs them. Like, it summons
Hmm.
them and they're treated as Xyz summons. So it is a cheating out in the instance where you don't overlay 2 level 2s, but it's not a cheating out in the instance where it's like if they die, they don't come back or you can't revive them. And so this is an archetype uses a lot of quick play spells to give them extra bonuses. Things like they can attack multiple times, they can you gain effects if they're equipped to particular ones, and then their big strategy is ending on their rank 7, in particular Expurly Noir, which is what would, for lack of a better term, towers with interruption. And I think that that's quite a unique strategy. This quick play cheating Xyz.
Yeah, it kind of plays in a way of like having Sky Striker and Zodiac like mixed together in one deck in a sense.
That's a
Um,
great description.
yeah, but it's cool. I think it probably needs its rows as such. Like it needs another main deck monster because you really do need to find that Pearly.
Well, we are getting that.
You are, and in the OCG, I believe it's actually been doing relatively well. So yeah, it's interesting. It has lots of collector's rares, as you're finding out.
Yeah, I am finding out, unfortunately. They decided to bless Pearlies with 5 unique collector's rares, 3 of which are playsets. So, hey guys, we're going to tell you all the amazing things about Amazing Defenders, so why don't you go and support your local OTS and buy a box or two and let me know if you pull a Pearly CR, because I might be able to help recoup some of those finances. The final one to me is the one to talk about, Joe.
Yeah, the final archetype in Amazing Defenders is Mekanko. It's one that we've actually both picked up and played this week. It can't be played in a pure sense yet, I don't think. Maybe with more support it might do. And Mekanko is a ritual-based deck that uses equip spells, and it's quite unique in the way it works. Like you set up your equip spells into Grave, and then you get your ritual monster to add them back onto it, and it gives them abilities like you can equip them to your opponent's monsters and snatch steal them. You can put them on your own, and if your opponent's specials, you can pop 2 cards. There's quite a lot of unique things the deck can do. At the moment, I'm using it as an engine within Libromancer, and it works well.
That's also my build. I think that the strategy is super unique. It's kind of a breath of fresh air for ritual strategies. I also love playing a ritual strategy that doesn't auto lose to bestials. That feels great. And I think that the way that the deck plays is super unique. A big factor of them is that when the main deck monsters are equipped with equip spells, they can't be destroyed by battle and your opponent takes the damage. And the level 6 ritual has that ability already inbuilt to her. She's also a filter. She can find pieces that are missing. And what the Libromancers add, in my opinion, is resources and the ability to utilize the extra deck. Because, to be honest, a lot of these cards by themselves don't generate a lot of advantage. And that's where the Libromancers come in so well. I mean, it is pretty incredible what you can achieve with a Libromancer name, be it Geek Boy or Fire, and one ritual monster in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, you can set up a pretty decent board. Like my usual end board at the moment is like a Baron, one other negate in intervention, the trap for Libromancers, and then you also have pretty much 2 snatch deals. So it's not so much the negates that are hard to play through. Like, and most players can kind of push through those. It's the ability to snatch steal your opponent's monsters twice in a turn if you set it up properly. Like, obviously you need an optimal hand for that, but like, it's a struggle. Like, I watched a lot of people struggle against me trying to set that, get through that board, but they have to commit a monster and you just snatch it away. It's pretty strong.
Not even that. If you're in a simplified game state, all you need is if they have to play a monster, you have a body that, if they don't kill you, starts hurting them back. They're disincentivized to attack, and the equipped spells all give what they're equipped to protection from card destruction. So I think that that's a unique aspect because you can not only equip it to obviously your Mikanko monsters, or in the case of Mikanko Reflection Rondo, which is their snatch steal to an opponent's monster, you can equip it to things like your Baron, your Elf, which is generally also up there too, your Doombroker, and it means that these cards are super hard to destroy beyond just, simple battle. And I think what the deck does is really unique. It's explosive, and I think my favorite part about this deck, what really sold me on the fact, is it can very comfortably go first and second.
So I got into a situation at Hobby League where I got into a simplified game state. All they had was a face-up Druid Swarm, and what I did was summon my ritual guy, have my main deck monster face up, and all you do is just ram into the Druid Swarm twice. Then you use the ritual monster to equip the snatch steal to steal the monster and do the last of the damage, which is pretty sick.
Yeah. I mean, I had the exact same situations where one of their equipped spells can special summon one of the Mikankos from hand or grave, and then it can reborn a monster from your opponent's grave, but it negates its effects. And I did that exact same technique where they had no monsters on board. I was able to special summon out my Hare from my graveyard, and then use Ohime and Hare to deal 5,400 points of damage to them because they had an attack position Impin.
It's cool. It plays very, very, I don't know, unique, and that's what I do like about what they have done recently with deck building sets. Is they've kind of looked at the game of Yu-Gi-Oh and they've gone, right, what is something we haven't really done before? And I do commend them on that. Like, you'll get in decks like Pearly, you'll get in decks like this Mekanko one. In previous sets, you had like, I know it didn't really pay off, but like, what was that pendulum one that moves around, like weird stuff?
Valence.
Valence, that's the one. Yeah, I mean, they tried with it, like, but moving zones, that was a unique new thing. Like, and I commend Konami for that. Like, I feel like they are getting pretty creative with these deck building sets, even though sometimes the archetypes do kind of not hit the mark as such.
Yeah, and especially it's really hard for I think a lot of these archetypes to have strength out of the box. I think it was pretty evident with something like Drytron. Everyone understood how much value there was
Mm.
in that strategy. I think, to a lesser extent, something like Evil Twins as well, pretty succinct and, played with itself and played within its own archetype really strongly. And then obviously you have the contrast of something like the Adventure Engine, which the whole purpose of it is that it played with other strategies.
Yeah.
And, you have this weird dichotomy of like xenophobic archetypes, things like Drytron, where you literally can't normal summon, and things like Exorcister, where you can only summon Exorcister monsters. And then you look at something like Adventure and Mikanko, where there is no limitations and no restrictions. I would even say that Mikanko has less restrictions than Adventure.
Yeah. No, and I've just been enjoying it. Like, it's definitely like brought back my passion for like playing the game. Like, I've spent a while in the last couple of formats kind of just sitting back, like running things, and I'm keen to play now. Like, I've got this new unique strategy. It's like not, it's not everywhere, so and people have to read the cards when you're playing against them. So like, it's fun. I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed the week. Yeah.
It's not tier one by any standards.
Oh no,
It's
no.
definitely a really strong rogue deck, and I like to say it's benefiting from the don't know syndrome, which is where
Mm.
your opponents don't know what you do, so you can win. As long as you have better card knowledge and card understanding, you generally will be in the winning position, which I definitely found. This week alone, I played 4 hobby leagues with the strategy, and my ending record as of time of recording was 13 wins and 3 losses.
I mean, that's solid.
And it's a blast. I love unique strategies. I think that they're always conducive of a good time, and it is fun to not only you play something different, but it also your opponent sits down and doesn't see you activate Pearl or Rhino, and they see you play something more interesting, and that kind of gives them something interesting to look forward to. I had a Fluondaries match today, and they were like, I just love that this strategy is completely different from the meta. And I said, me too. I don't mind playing against Fluondaries,
Mm.
especially because I get to do things differently than I would normally do.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think everyone's
overall,
almost a bit burnt out
yeah,
on the old tier element format.
old fusion to put on the bottom of the deck. So overall, I think that this is a pretty interesting set. I wouldn't put it at my top level of,
No.
best deck building sets of all time. I think it's what I would like to describe as a slow burn. And I think that there's a lot of potential for support to be good in the near future, with a really heavy asterisk next to that, and fine print saying that there's a significant format shift.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than the likes of Ancient Guardians, but I reckon it'll fall somewhere in like the Genesis Impact kind of like level of decks. Yeah, so, but overall, I'm happy with the set. It's given me something new to play. I'm enjoying it, and please open more boxes so I can get my collector's res.
Please open boxes of Amazing Defenders. Be sure to support your local game stores when you look for these incredible strategies. And I guess before we move on, Joe, is there anything you would like to say to the country of South America?
How many more Mekanko cards do you want me to play to make it a Mekanko deck?
Perfect. All right. That's Joe's statement on that matter.
And moving on, we have the second part of our 40 minutes coming up, and we will be talking about the ban list, which is always a huge discussion point with everyone in the game. We're not 100%
Especially
sure
now.
when this one will. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure when it's going to be due though. Like, we have the in a few months from now clause still on the current ban list.
My favorite line.
Yeah, and who knows when it's going to be? I feel like it could be relatively soon because we have like more regionals and stuff coming up. They want to maybe shake the format a bit when Photon Hypernova comes out. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on the banners? What do you feel like needs to be hit or changed so we can see new strategies emerge or old ones come back?
It's pretty rough, and it's, not even to like get into that discussion, it's really rough for the timing. I think a lot of
Mm.
people are so used to this kind of quarterly adjustments that, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, wasn't the last ban list within like 2 months of the previous one? Like, wasn't it an October list
Yeah.
and then a December
There,
list?
there was a weird like amendment list, wasn't there?
Well, it was like,
Um,
I don't think it was definitely a legitimate ban list. I think a lot of people like to throw around the word
yeah.
emergency, amendment, adjustment list. I think a lot of people like to be a bit hyperbolic.
I
Um,
think it was a strange one. I think it kind
it
of
was
wasn't
October,
like
yeah.
yeah. So and actually, I've gone to the site here and it says the list will remain in effect till December 1st. So then there was that change, that small change, December 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows when the next one will be? We could be talking about something that doesn't happen for another few months. And I mean, I hope not. I think that people are ready for a little bit of a shake-up, mainly around the top deck. Because I feel like Tier Element can kind of still exist and be like fairer, and still be the best deck. It just needs to lose the Jizu side of it, or at least
I
tone that
think,
part down.
yeah, I think I'd probably agree with you on that aspect. I think what has not only made Tier Elements a stronger strategy, it has also made other strategies weaker. I think a lot of
Mm.
strategies obviously don't benefit as much from having their things sent from deck to grave as Tier Element does, unless, some brave souls out there playing BA.
Mm.
And in which case, more power to you. I'm going to support you. But realistically, that's it. And not only that, but the graveyard interruption that they then also gain from that, being things like the Keldo and Mudora, I think that those can be, not too conducive of balancing or an item that for the openness. And, that's why we see things like Fluonderies being so strong. Yes, of course, they don't like their cards being milled, but they don't necessarily, a lot of the same Telement tricks don't, phase something like Fluonderies as much.
I think there was a definite shift when Mavens came out. Like before then, we
Mm.
saw the OC format and stuff like that. We obviously Terra Element was still the best deck then, but there wasn't that kind of excuse the pun, that element of unfairness that the deck possessed. It was really powerful, really strong, but it wasn't unbeatable. Like, and I know people will argue, yes, it's still beatable now with a shifter or whatever, but like it is so good. Like the fact that it's so consistent. There's so many mills for like absolutely no reason. They're literally setting up DD Crows in the grave for like no reason at all. Like it just is so unfair.
It's
Um,
it's pretty powerful.
it's very super strong. I don't think I've seen a deck. I don't know where this will rank in the top decks of all time, but it will be right up there. Like because of the power creep level of the deck. Like I don't see that this deck losing to things like Dragon Rulers and stuff, say in a multi-format situation. But
No.
it's just it needs toning down. I think a lot of people are sick of having to play that deck. Yes, the mirror is skillful, but there's only so many mirrors you can play before you literally go insane. Um, People are crying out for a change, and a change is due. Um,
Oh, 100%. I think that it's not a matter of if it's a win, it's just we don't know when that win
mm.
is.
There is a slight worry and concern of mine though, is Konami have really got their hands full with this next ban list, because if they hit Tier Element to a point where it's not the best deck anymore, you have these decks like Sprite and stuff that have just been sitting kind of a little bit dormant, ready to spring on the opportunity of that deck going away. Um, and
Yes.
the format could really be blown wide open. And I guess it's good in some ways, but they're going to want to push new stuff. So I feel like we're still going to be going down that Tier Element line, but we're going to see a lot more of Kashtira and things like that. And
Mm.
that's obviously what's going to be probably the next big deck in the next set. Um, I'm not personally a big fan of it because it's one of those you're not playing the game decks.
And I was talking about this in regards to Kashtira. Yes, the strategy is unique. Yes, it's pretty interesting that all your things like rank 7 hasn't been a thing since Dragon Rulers. It would have
Mm,
been what, literally 10 years since Dragon Rulers came out in 2013.
yeah.
So it's interesting to see the revival of level 7s and rank 7s, obviously, by that extension. I just what I think is the biggest misleading thing, and what people can often find like a strange comfort, is that mid-range control decks like Kashtira do well in an OCG format because they can play a little bit more unfairly, and something like a unicorn heavily disincentivizes a max C because there's just so much interaction based off exactly that. Whereas
Mm.
here, we don't have that same luxury, and control decks need to have a really, really unfair aspect about them to succeed. I think things like Eldritch, where your floodgates, you could play everything under the sun essentially, and you were never punished,
Yeah.
and you had a 3500 body that was indestructible by card effects. And to a lesser extent, obviously Flanderies, that succeeded across both formats, which makes sense to me. I think that that's a really well designed strategy with an unfair aspect being barrier statue. So I
Mm.
don't particularly know what Kashtira's unfair thing is at this moment in time.
Yeah. It's unique. I feel like it is one of those decks that is going to force players into having to like be kind of aware of it with cards. Like you know, you're gonna have to probably put your space rock back in your deck again. You're gonna have to have
Bubble up
like
names
things.
you need.
Yeah, you're gonna have to like be ready for it. It's not gonna be a deck that it's gonna be like the time of Mystic Mine. If you didn't have the out in your deck, you're not gonna win that matchup. Like it's just not gonna happen. So you need to be prepared for it. It's a deck that will do well. I feel like you might be right. It might not be as good as it was in the OCG, in the TCG, and a lot of it will be dependent on the ban list, on other things, other factors, other decks that interact with it differently. Um, but no, I feel Tear Kashtira is also a deck. Like that deck together
Yes.
is still very, very, very strong.
Yes.
And that will probably be the version of Kashtira that will be the best.
I think, yeah, that kind of combo strategy, I think, will probably be stronger than something like that kind of control. I just feel like a control deck in the TCG has to be really, really, has to be able to slow the game down drastically. And I just don't
Yeah.
see Kashtira doing that. Okay, sure, zone locking for 3 on your turn 1 seems pretty unfair. Yes. But apart from that, is that really in a macrocosmos, is that unfair in a TCG format? I don't know. I think the unfair aspects are things like Diablosis that take out your extra deck cards, and
Mm.
things like Unicorn that disincentivize monster-based hand traps because they also start to just take out your extra deck. That's the unfair aspects to me. I don't know so much about everything else.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think you're going to definitely see a few times like the 10 card like lock happen. The 10 zone lock, I should say, like when you get all of them. And you're going to have literally a lava golem or a kaiju in hand to like play the game.
Mm.
But yeah, you're right. I feel time will tell with this format coming up. It's a really, really hard format to predict.
Yeah.
One of the hardest probably ever because there's so many decks, as I say, waiting in the wings, like your sprites, like your even not so much older strategies like Tri-Brigade or such, but like they can like pop up again. Like Drytron might show up again if Bastiles disappear.
Yeah.
There's Branded is around the corner. That's one we
Yeah.
haven't spoken about. There's
Still
really,
branded.
really good Branded cards coming out, and that will be a strong contender. The fact that it has that new Despia Synchro, which is pretty cool.
We don't get that till May, but that is pretty
No, try
exciting.
yeah, but that's coming up. Like it's in the future. People are definitely aware of it. What were your sort of like main picks for the ban list if we have to do them? Like, what would you say? Like, say 3 or 4 little hot takes, I suppose, on what you think needs to go or come back.
Yeah, comeback's always harder than go. I mean, comeback is just like as a whole other conversation because realistically, that Forbidden Unlimited list needs to just be absolutely
Trimmed up.
it's not even a spring clean. It's just a clean, like a deep clean of that list.
Mm.
In terms of go, I personally would like to see Barrier Statue go. I think that that's really my pick, like kind of my number one, which is ironic because it's not a T element card in the slightest. Um,
Mm.
but obviously Floowandereeze are really strong. That's their unfair button. And there are abilities in Kashtira to utilize said barrier statue. So I think realistically, there's, it can be quite hard to, figure out how to do something balanced, because once a new deck starts using an old deck's toys in an unfun way, I think that that's when they need to be addressed.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I feel the barrier statue is one for me. I feel that's been around for a while now. It probably will take Floowandereeze mainly out the format. Like it will still be a deck, but don't see it really doing what it's doing now without the barrier statue. But it's a card that literally says it's like a Mystic Mine as such. Like it almost says, you can't play. Like that's it, you're done. Do you have the out? No, cool, I won. And it's so hard to out in that deck, like because you have to normal summon a card to attack over it. And as soon as you normal summon that card, your card is gone. Like there's so many things that happen. Another one for me, and as kind of a personal gripe, I suppose, is I feel like the Bestials need a small touch. And I feel Magnamut is the one that probably needs to go down to 1.
I'd agree with that.
Just because it's the one Bestial which like doesn't just become a DD Crow in a body, it's a DD Crow body that also replaces itself with another copy of a DD Crow body. And that is probably a little bit too strong. And
Yeah,
the fact you can search any dragon.
Any dragon, not to mention there's a new Bestial in the next set. So it just adds another name to the roster.
And the fact that next set you can play 12 if you wanted to. Like 12 DD Crows is pretty crazy.
I feel like you just brick at that point, though.
You probably would.
I don't think I'd play 12 DD Crows. I'd consider 12 DD Crows with the bodies that they are. But I think that, it might be a little bit too excessive. I think in terms of like other hits that aren't Telement, because I feel like that's probably the ending conversation, I would probably see like a little sprite hit. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would probably be something along the lines of either a starter or a blue or a jet. I think that realistically the extra deck cards are okay. In the deck, in Sprite, they're okay. In other decks, I think the extra deck cards are a little bit unbalanced. But in Sprite as a strategy, I think that those would be my adjustments. Something in terms of either blue, jet, or starter. I think everything else plays really nicely with each other. I like the level 2s. I like the idea of using it with Tri-Brigade / Ishki / Evil Twins. Those are, Sprite adds a fun uniqueness to level 2 strategies that didn't exist before. So I think that's, I think if they want to avoid seeing just a full Sprite domination by adjusting the best deck of the format, I think that those hits may need to be made.
Yeah, I think one starter kind of would remind me of like previous formats when there's been those super consistent decks and they've just taken away the one reinforcements of the army. So like, and that's usually the hit that we do in the TCG is we take away the searcher.
Yeah.
Or we like make it slightly less consistent, not to the point where the power level, like what Zodiac Barrage is a prime example of that. Like, it's we took it down to 1. It didn't kill the deck. It still was the strongest, best deck at the time. But it's enough. It definitely like neuters it down, so it's not like you're not drawing the absolute like best hand every time. Because when a Sprite player has to summon a level 2, and then you like try to get rid of it, and then they have a starter like that won't happen as much anymore. Like so, the turn can just end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel obviously we would be here for another 40-50 minutes talking about what could come back. There's so many things, but the conversation comes up every time, and I'm going to bring it up, and that's Maxi.
No, not the bug.
Can it come back again?
No.
Can it come back?
No, I think,
still no.
I don't think bug. I think realistically, what I like about Maxi not existing in this format is it gives us such a unique playing experience to the OCG. I just worry that we would be playing an OCG format with more broken cards or with product 6 months behind. I think that the bug is just too strong. Like, it's just too impactful. It literally, like, people say Shifter ends turns. I think those people don't understand how Maxi ends turns in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, to me, I just think that Maxi is a little too powerful. and it cannot exist at more than 0. And if it was to exist, it must exist at 3. And if it were to exist at more than 0, I think I would take a hiatus from the game until that was adjusted.
I think a lot of people share that same sentiment. There is, I wouldn't say the splits down the middle. I always feel like with this conversation, I'd say 70% of people would want it to stay where it is, and then you got this like 30% of people that just loved Maxi back in the day. I don't know where they got this obsession of Maxi. I never enjoyed it. I thought it was a card, and you're right, like it can just end a turn straight away. It's like shifter-esque, as you said. There are slightly more outs in the game to a Maxi now. So like Ash Blossom obviously wasn't around, Cross Out, Call by the Grave, things like that. But at the same time, it's going to become one of those. Can you stop this? No, cool. I won.
Yeah,
And I don't like those sorts of cards. I feel like I can understand why some people want it back. They want it to slow the format down, and that's kind of what you get in the OCG. But then on the flip side, and this is the argument I always bring up with Maxi, is what if I get to do my full combo and I have a Maxi in hand? You know, you've literally just cemented like the end of the game. Like that's it. Like they now have to break your board while letting you draw for every single card that they're attempting to break your board with. And
yeah,
that's where Maxi is unfair to me.
yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, I set up full combo and I've got Maxi.
Yeah, it's unfair. It's not cool. But yeah, overall, it's a very very tough ban list to pick and very tough format to predict. As I said, I'm looking forward to it though. I feel like hopefully, fingers crossed, there's a shake up and we see a slightly more diverse format. I'm not asking for like every single deck to be super competitive. I'm just asking that every deck can like kind of have a chance at winning things like regionals and stuff like that. And at the moment, it is purely Tearlament with a sprinkling of Sprite and Floowandereeze. So
Yeah,
yeah, I want it, and I want it to change. And if it does have a drastic change, I feel like this next regional season will be like one of the more interesting ones in recent years,
oh, I
where
agree.
people are like they're trying to work out what's the best deck. That's the formats I love, is when it shifts throughout a format. Like at the start, people think that they have the broken deck figured out, and then all of a sudden you get someone come up with a super creative idea, breaks the deck, and it goes in a different direction. And then someone goes, "Hey, this is the perfect counter to that deck," and then it flips again, and it all goes that way. And I love seeing those like flip flop formats where one deck dominates the beginning, and then another deck overtakes it, and another deck comes back at the end. So I want to see more of that.
Yeah, I like the triangle formats. Big fan of triangle, square formats. I think that those are pretty conducive of a
Mhm.
good time. Right now, it's obviously very much one at the top. You've got a couple kind of flocking the ranks, and then the ability for like some very niche rogue strategies to kind of have a chance. But realistically, I think that there does need to be an adjustment, and I would love for there to be the ability for this kind of trifecta or quadrant of decks that are able to perfectly counter each other or have their significant strengths and weaknesses with one another, because I think that that is not only conducive of good gameplay, I think it's also conducive of good skill learning. I think it's really hard for a lot of people to learn, especially in a modern era, just to learn one deck. So I
Mm.
think why not have something 2 or 3? Not to mention whole other conversation budget. If these decks are more budget friendly than some of the others, it makes it more enticing to newer players to really actively try to have a go in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And have the ability to succeed at things such as store championships and regionals, which are obviously dotted all across our calendars this year.
One thing I'll quickly touch on there as well is I know last week we briefly talked about a new deck needing to be slightly less complicated, and that's no shade thrown at any new player or like players that don't have a lot of time to like play the game. And it's just that I feel like you need easier decks to be around, so then like they can at least compete, like at a higher level. Because I know, like for sure, like I know Eldritch gets a bit of flack for being an easy to play deck, but and like flipping up floodgates. But at the same time, you've got to have those decks around.
And with that has been 40 minutes, and that is time in the round. So all in all, end of match procedures now. I guess we've got so much to look forward to, so much that we are excited to participate in. And be sure to check out your local stores for Amazing Defenders, Photon Hypernova, and keep an eye out for all competitive events that are upcoming. For those of us who are listening in New Zealand, be sure to support your stores that are hosting regionals. Currently, at this moment in time, we have Dice Jar Games. And
There's also that big event that hasn't got a name yet. That
hasn't got a
I think
name
it's
yet.
3rd and 4th, or 4th and 5th. Sorry, of March.
4th and 5th
in
of
Auckland.
March. We've got the regional in Dice Jar on the 18th of March. He's got a great weekend of Yu-Gi-Oh! Planned. And April 22nd and 23rd for Valkyrie Games in Palmerston North. And I look forward to announcing more events for the rest of the New Zealand Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. But as always, thank you so much for listening. My name is Ruben.
I'm Joe, and a quick closing note from me. Comment what your favorite EV evolution is.
Yeah, I look forward to them. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at that'stimeintheround@gmail.com. This should be on YouTube, I believe, so be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with a friend. If not, YouTube's still coming. Logo's still coming. And, we look forward to providing you with another 40 minutes next week of a discussion around Yu-Gi-Oh! But with that, I'm Ruben.
I'm Joe.
And that's Time in the Round.